Okay, so I watched this movie like 2 or 3 weeks ago, so it's been a while since I've seen it, but I've seen it 2 times, so I think it's like embedded enough into my, memory for me to still talk about it here. So I have read the 3 books. I liked the first two; they were good. The third movie, on the other hand, I wasn't a fan of. I thought that was pretty bad. It was just really boring. I just didn't like the third book. The first movie was. I thought it was okay, but it just really bugged me when the games began. Like, the build up to the games were great. Like, the political stuff was, I liked that stuff. That was really interesting and fun to watch, but as soon as the games began, the movie went downhill fast. Like, the games were they just bored me, like, really quickly. Yeah, okay, so that's really what I thought about the first movie. I still, I don't know, I'm not, I'm hesitant to say I liked it. It's just the games really bugged me, and like the games were like half of the movie as well, so it's like it's a gaping issue for me. Okay, so before I talk about the second movie, I guess I should quickly get the Battle Royale thing out of the way. So otherwise I'm going to constantly, I'm going to be bringing that up throughout the whole entire video otherwise. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Battle Royale is a Japanese movie. Yeah, it's a Japanese movie based on a book, both of which came out before the Hunger Games books. And basically, a lot of people accuse the Hunger Games of being a rip-off of Battle Royale because the plots are extremely similar. Some people disagree, some people agree it's a rip-off, some people don't. I personally think it's a rip-off. I'm not sure to try and convince people who don't think it's a rip-off that it is a rip-off. You can have your opinion, you can stick with it, you're fine with that. You won't be able to convince me otherwise, trust me. It's just I personally believe it's a rip-off. Like, I guess it comes down to your own, like, tolerance level, like how how many similarities you can tolerate in a film before you accuse it of being a rip-off. I guess that's how it goes. For those of you who don't know the story of Battle Royale, it's basically the same. It takes place in the not too distant future where the government randomly selects a class of school students once a year, and they place this class of school students on an isolated island and force them to fight to the death. Like, they have exploding collars on, but it's basically the same. So you got the same idea here. It's basically the same thing. Yeah, I just want to get this out of the way though. By the way, I'm aware that the author of the Hunger Games has claimed that she never read or heard of Battle Royale before she started writing the Hunger Games. But whether or not you want to believe it is up to you. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so I just want to establish here, even though I think the Hunger Games is a rip-off of Battle Royale, that doesn't mean I hate it. Like, right off the bat. To give you a good example, like the Saw movies. I love the Saw movies. It's a film series I hold very near and dear to me. And one of the things I really like about the Saw movies are the traps. It's fun, you have 60 seconds to cut out your eye, or that Iron Maiden will snap shut your face. That sort of stuff is fun to watch. The trap scenarios are really entertaining. So when I watch a Saw rip-off, I'm not offended or insulted that another movie is ripping off my favourite movie. If anything, I'm like happy and excited because it just means I get to see another movie with traps. Because, like I said, the trap scenarios are a lot of fun to watch. I find them really entertaining to watch. So when I watch a Saw ripoff, I'm not insulted that they are copying my favourite movie or offended. I'm just really happy that I get to see more traps. So it's kind of the same here with Hunger Games and Battle Royale. Like, Battle Royale has the scenario where, a bunch of kids are placed in an isolated area by the government and forced to fight to the death. The Hunger Games has that, and I'm not mad or insulted that the Hunger Games is copying a really awesome movie. I'm happy because I get to see, like, a bunch of kids being forced to kill each other again. So I just want to get that out of the way right now. So even though I think it's basically a rip-off of Battle Royale, I don't hate it because of that reason. I don't hate it anyway, but I wouldn't dislike it or hate it for that reason. I just want to get that out of the way. Okay, so on about the actual movie now. So a quick rundown on the story. Especially Katniss and Peter are like dealing with the aftermaths of surviving the games in the first movie. It's basically them dealing with like the aftermath. Like, they've kind of sparked a rebellion because of what they did at the end of the first movie, and it's basically them trying to appease President Snow, I guess. The movie kind of goes off from there. Okay, so I basically have the same problem. Like the same problems I had with the first movie are apparent here, which is the movie goes downhill when the games begin. However, I will say I did like this movie more than the first movie. I think that's because the games in this movie were nowhere near as long as they were in the first movie. Like, in the first movie, it was like 1 hour and 10 minutes of the political stuff and the build-up. Then you had another hour and 10 minutes of the actual games. And, that, the games were really boring to me and they really frustrated me. So, you know, so obviously the more they have of the games in the movie, the less I'm going to like the movie. So, when we get to the second movie, I would say about 2 hours of the movie is the political stuff, like the build-up, and then the final half hour or final 20 minutes is the games, which I'm glad, because like I said, the games in both movies is by far the weakest part of both movies. That's where the movies go downhill. So the fact that, like, don't get me wrong, the games in this movie is still poorly done and just kind of painful to watch, but the fact that it's only 20 minutes long compared to the original movie where the games were like 1 hour and 10 minutes long makes this one a lot more enjoyable for me, because we get like 2 hours of the political stuff, which is a lot more entertaining and fun to watch and interesting as opposed to the games. Okay, so having said that, I think the games in this movie were worse than they were in the first movie. Like, the game in this movie was a lot more poorly done than they were in the first movie. But I still prefer this movie for the simple fact that the games are shorter. Like, I'll take 20 minutes of boredom over 1 hour and 10 minutes of boredom any day. Even if one like element, one side of boredom is even more intense. Because the games in this movie, I have quite a few issues with them. As you would expect, the shaky cam is back. They cut out the gore, the carnage, the blood, the fun stuff, what we want to see, the brutality. Like, we want to see all that kind of stuff, and as you would expect, they cut it out. I mean, it's a 12A, what do you expect? So yeah, obviously I was expecting it, but it's not going to stop me from moaning and just whining about it. I can't help it. It's just something which really bugs me. Like, I know the books and the movies. I know the books were for kids, so they kind of want to like target the movies towards kids, and I know they want to give it like a 12A rating, so kids can still see it and they make a lot of money. But that won't change my feelings on the movie. It's still going to bug me. Like, the fights, there's not as much fight scenes in this movie as there were in the original. So the shaky cam isn't as like predominant in this movie as it was in the first movie, because there's not as much fight scenes. But when there are fight scenes, they are like atrocious. Like, it's so hard to tell how some people are dying in this movie in some of the fight scenes. Like, somebody told me that somebody got their throat slit in this movie. They told me that. I was like, what? Like, did we watch the same movie? Like, I was trying to like replay the movie in my head. I don't recall anyone getting their throat slit in the movie. I guess there's this one point where somebody could have got their throat slit, but I can't really it's hard to tell what's going on, because like I said, the shaky cam, it's really difficult to tell what's going on in the fight scenes. It's really bad, like really bad, I'm telling you. Okay, so the shaky cam really bugged me. The fight scenes are poorly done. The gore, the usual issues I have are present here. It's okay. What I really dislike about the games in this movie, as opposed to the first movie, is the fact that the majority of the contestants are killed off by environmental hazards as opposed to each other. Because the interesting and fun thing about a situation like this is watching how people react to the situation. Because essentially, it's people being forced to kill each other. They have to kill each other. So that's the interesting part of this situation, watching how the characters react to this. But the thing is, you don't really get to see the characters or contestants react to the situation, because the majority of them are killed off by like environmental hazards, and it's not interesting or fun or entertaining to watch these contestants like defend themselves from environmental hazards. It's just not fun to watch. Like, for example, at one point in the movie, Katniss and Peter and Katniss and the gang are being pursued by this like cloud of CGI poison, and it's just not fun to watch. It's really boring. It's just not interesting. Like, it just puts you to sleep. Like, that whole sequence where they're running away from the cloud of CGI poison, I was just really bored by it. It was dreadful. At one point they have to fight a gang of like CGI monkeys as well. That's not fun or interesting to watch as well. Like, that's just really boring to watch. Like, it's just not fun to watch these characters defend themselves or get killed by environmental hazards. In a situation like this, you want to see them kill each other and, you know, kind of react to the emotions and whatnot, but you don't get much of that because, don't get me wrong, one or two people are killed off by other contestants, but for the most part, they are all killed off by environmental hazards, and which I've just said is not fun to watch. And speaking about that CGI cloud of poison, the sequence where Katniss and the gang are being chased by a cloud of CGI poison, that scene was dreadful because of two reasons. For one reason, for starters, the cloud kept varying in speed because it's moving, it's like chasing after them. At first it moves at like inch by inch gradually because they're sleeping at first. Katniss wakes up and she kind of notices it and it's moving incredibly slowly. When they realise it's lethal, they all start running, and then all of a sudden the cloud is like moving at like 1,000,000 miles per hour and it's like constantly right behind them. And at one point Katniss trips and falls over and she's like lying on the floor for like 10 seconds straight, and now the cloud is like conveniently moving incredibly slowly now. And then as soon as she gets up and starts running, the cloud's like moving right behind her once again. You know, that sort of stuff really bugged me. This is one thing which probably only bugged me because I'm a movie nerd. I'm sure like the general audience didn't even care about this scene, but okay, brace yourself because I'm about to moan about it. So when Katniss is running away from the cloud of CGI poison, at one point she trips and falls. She's like lying on her stomach. The cloud is like getting closer to her, and I shit you not, this is what happens. She's lying on the floor. She looks back at the cloud and she's like, you know, terrified because this cloud is about to kill her. She's just lying there and she looks back at the cloud, terrified. Then she looks back at the gang, and Peter is like, Peter stops, he's ahead of her. He stops, notices she's on the floor, you know, and they both look at each other like horrified, and then Peter runs back over to her and helps her, drags her to her feet, and then they start running again. Like, it's a really shitty movie cliche, which I can't stand. I just don't get the logic behind it. Like, I guess they were trying to make it suspenseful, but it's just an immensely stupid scene. Or moments, let's say. It's a very brief moment, but wow, I was like, did they really just do that? Like, do they really think they built up, did they really think they added to the suspense by doing that? They're just making me roll my eyes. Like, that scene was dreadful, that little moment. Like, she was lying there for like 20 seconds straight on the ground anyway. Why didn't she just get up and run? Like, you know, to state the obvious. But that little moment, it's a really quick moment, but it really, really bugged me, I'm telling you. I really, really... Wow, okay, let's move on. Okay, so all the political stuff is fine. So like the build up to the games, once again, I'm fine with that. I find it interesting to watch. So when the games begin is when it goes downhill fast. And like when it goes downhill, it like really goes downhill. I'm just saying. Okay, so Woody Harrelson, he's a lot of fun. I like him. Like, I like him as an actor anyway, so I'm just glad to see him in this movie again. The guy who plays Caesar, I really like him as well. He's really fun to watch. You know, he's that guy who interviews the contestants before they play the game. I always get a kick out of watching him. I loved him in the first movie. He's just as awesome in this one as well. He's just really fun to watch. He's really outrageous and just... He's kind of campy, but, you know, you love him. He's a lot of fun to watch. I liked it when like I'm not sure what her name was, but that girl, the female contestant, when she was being interviewed by Caesar, she starts yelling because she's pissed off that she has to play again. But for those of you who don't know, the contestants of the game in this movie are like the winners of the previous games. So this one female contestant is like really mad because she's like, you know, she's won. Like the deal was if she wins a previous game, she gets to live the rest of her life in peace. But now they're making her play again, which is kind of unfair. But I just thought that was a fun moment when she was kind of like yelling at the crowd and like, you know, screaming in the interview about it. I thought that was a good moment. I like that. Everyone seems to be praising Jennifer Lawrence, but I'm just like, really? Like, I don't really like her. Like, I wouldn't say she's not a bad actress by any means, but she's not great either. She's just very average. Like, I don't really have anything to say about her. She's just a really mediocre actress, and like everyone's like praising her to death. I'm just like, really? I don't know. I'm not a fan of her. Like, I don't like her. Like, when I see the way she conducts herself in interviews and stuff, I just don't like her. So I don't know. I guess you could argue maybe I'm a bit biased because of that. I just don't like her as a person from what I've seen of her in interviews. But yeah, like trying to put my biasism, is that a word? Trying to put the fact that I'm biased aside, I just think she's really average. Like, come on, if I was truly biased, I would say she's shit, right? I'm saying I'm giving her that. She's average. I'll give her that at least. But yeah, I don't know. Everyone really praises her like a lot, and I'm just like, really, she's just no, she's nothing special. Like she's okay, you know. That's really all I have to say about the acting. The love triangle is another thing that really bothers me. Like I understand that Peter and Katniss are trying to fake this romance they have with one another to, you know, to try and like make the revolution kind of die down and to like please the people at the capital. I understand that they're trying to do that, like they're faking their romance, but there are several moments in this movie, especially during the game, where it's apparent that Katniss is genuinely falling for Peter, and it's just so painful and cringy to watch. Like I know they're trying to they got to shoehorn this love triangle story in to like, you know, cater towards the teenage girls, I guess. You know, I get, but you know. You know, show some respect. Just don't put that shit in there. This movie does not need this. Just don't do that. Like, I'm okay with the parts where they're like faking their romance because, you know, it's not real. You know, but there are several moments throughout the film where she is clearly, genuinely falling for Peter, and those sort of moments really bug me. I really hate those moments. Like they're really like cringy moments. Okay, so another quick thing. Basically, when the games began in the first movie, there's like a 60-second countdown where all of the contestants were like standing on their platforms, like in a circle, and it's like, so they're all standing on the platforms, and then there's a 60-second countdown that goes down. When it reaches 0, that's when the games begin and they can like run and like kill each other. I thought that was a great moment. That was actually one of the best moments of the first film because it built up like a really good sense of dread. They were milking the suspense so well there. It didn't drag itself out, you know, too long. And they dragged it out as long as they could have without it, you know, getting tiresome. So that moment was really, I thought that was a really great moment. Like I was on the edge of my seat. Like, obviously the movie went downhill very quickly as soon as that timer hit 0. But when that voice was counted down from 60 seconds and they were all just standing there on their platforms. It's because it's kind of like, you know, they're all looking at each other right now, but they know they're going to have to kill each other as soon as that timer hits 0. It's just a really great sense of dread I got from that scene. So I love that 60-second countdown, man. That was a really, really good moment. This time around, they kind of have a countdown before the game begins, but it's only 10 seconds long. You know, it doesn't make me mad or anything. I'm just saying, they should have made that 60 seconds long because it's a great opportunity for them to milk suspense. And I don't know, I thought it's weird that they only went for 10 seconds instead of 60 seconds here. I don't know, that's kind of weird, I thought. No, not that it bugged me or anything, I was like, I'm just saying. I think it would have been cool if they did it for 60 seconds. I would have been fine with that. Okay, about the acting department. What's like, I don't know the actor's name, but you know Katniss's other love interest, not Peter, the other guy. I'm forgetting his name. You know the guy who like stays in District 12? Her real boyfriend, I guess you should say. If you want to go, let's quickly revisit the acting topic here. That guy is a bad actor. I'm just going to say that. Okay, let's move on. I don't really have anything else to say. It's the same. I have the same complaints as I did in the first movie. When we get to the games, that's where the movie goes downhill, and there's a lot more boring to watch than it was in the first movie because the majority of the contestants are killed off by environmental hazards, as opposed to the contestants killing each other, which is the more interesting thing to watch, you know. But thankfully, the games in this movie are only like 20 or 30 minutes long, as opposed to the first movie where it was like half the movie. So that's why I enjoyed this movie a lot more, because the games were shorter. Like the games were a lot more boring to watch in this movie than they were in the first movie, but they were shorter, so overall I enjoyed the movie because of that reason. And the political stuff, I don't really have much to say about that. It's just, you know, the political side of things was fun to watch. I was interested, I was engaged. That stuff was fine. Everything after that sucked. Yeah, I don't know, I think that's all I have to say. Okay, there's this one, in the trailer there's this one moment where President Snow kind of laughs. He does this evil laugh. Like, he's discussing with the game maker, like, what to do about the revolution, and he kind of, like, lets out this evil laugh at some point. I thought that was, like, a really cheesy moment, but thankfully they didn't put it in the actual movie. So I'm glad about that. I'm glad they cut that out, because I was dreading that moment in the actual movie. Yeah, that's the last bit for real, though. Yeah, that's it, so... Yeah, it was still fine. Like, I definitely recommend seeing it anyway. Although I'm sure you've probably seen it by now, by the time I've uploaded this. Okay, that's all I have to say, so see ya.